right, hey there in Goatland. Coming to you today with a special guest. We've got Blaine Pardoe joining us. Right now, I'm going to bring in one of our usual suspects. We're going to bring in Dwight Cenac. Dwight?
Hey, yo. Hey, yo.
All right. We got our usual man. Where are you coming out of?
Vegas, baby.
All right. This is going to be awesome.
G-Turf.
Look at that background. It's fantastic. All right. We got the two usual suspects. We are missing William tonight, but we'll be seeing him on the next show, we hope. All right. Let's bring in the man himself, Blaine Lee Pardoe.
Hey.
Blaine, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How are you guys?
Fantastic. Where do we have you hailing from tonight?
Spotsylvania, Virginia, outside Washington, D.C.
Okay. All right. We already introduced Dwight tonight coming in from Las Vegas with that wonderful background.
I know. It looks fake, but it's not.
It's totally real.
Yeah,
I
right.
guarantee it.
I'm out here in Chicago as always. Good to see you guys on tonight. So let's get talking about your new project. You have something releasing this week, right?
Yeah, we just announced the release date for Land and Sea, which is a new gaming universe that we're going to have. We're starting it out with a series of novels. First 3 novels have been announced. Their release dates starting on January 12th. We released the first book, the next month, the second book, and the following month, the third book. I'm already working on book 5. So, there's going to be a lot this year to support this. And we're building a game, a role-playing game and a tabletop game that kind of feeds from the novel story. And we'll let you kind of create a character and put it on the tabletop and fight battles and stuff and do it seamlessly, we hope. So that's been designed. We're still going through the development stage right now, but it's a lot of fun. I mean, I've been gaming since the 70s, and this is just, it's a blast being able to create a brand new universe and to be able to have some fun with it. We all like slinging dice,
Absolutely.
So is it going to be a dice chucker kind of game?
It's going to be some dice. We've actually been toying with some different mechanics. I threw out the idea last week of actually using a spinner. To do some damage allocation stuff. And I said, because we were talking about it, I said, let's get back to where gaming is gaming.
Yeah.
And if you think about when you played Hi-Ho Cheerio or Chutes and Ladders or the Game of
Tiddlywinks.
Yeah.
All of them had the spinner. And,
a spinner.
We all did it. And there's something about that kind of harkens to fun. Now, whether that'll be in the final product or not, I don't know. But God, it's just fun to play with stuff like that and go, so what's going to make people feel good when they play it? And that's what gaming should be about, is just having a good time.
Sure. So you've been having a good time playing what in recent times?
I'm actually prepping a Star Trek role-playing game adventure, for the Star Trek Adventures from Modiphius.
And that's not your first foray into Star Trek, right?
No. I actually wrote for the FASA version of Star Trek back in 1984 or 85. I actually did a bunch of their source books for that back in the day. I still have that on the shelf. I love that game. It is, it's a nice game, but there's so much more with the new Modiphius stuff that I kind of like, and I'm having some fun with it. Behind me, I've got a 3D printed ship all ready to go for my new crew so that they can put their miniatures in the ship.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
I'm going to have some fun doing stuff like that.
You have any idea what scale that is?
That's 28 millimeter.
Okay, cool.
So
that's standard for guys like me.
Yeah.
And Games Workshop stuff, everything like that too.
Yeah, if you're going to play, you want to do a 28 millimeter. You go up to 32 and stuff, the miniatures start getting a little big, and it limits the terrain that you can access. There's so much out there for 28 millimeter. When you start going up 32 millimeter, suddenly doors don't work.
It's very cool. So tell us a little bit about what I see the title behind you for Blue Dawn. Can you tell us a little bit about that novel series?
That novel series is a conservative political thriller series that I started. And it's about the progressives overthrow the government, kill the president, and they get everything they want. And 5 years later, people start fighting back to take back the United States, and it leads to a second American Civil War. it's really a fun universe to play in, but it's definitely political, and it's a romp. I mean, there's a lot of action. It's a big ensemble cast. And I'm really liking doing that in my novels now rather than focusing on a single character. I still do that occasionally, but I'm really enjoying having these ensemble casts where you get a lot of different perspectives and get a lot broader view of what's going on. I didn't realize so much of what I wrote in Blue Dawn would actually start transpiring in real life.
Science prediction, right?
Yeah, I didn't realize I was giving everybody a blueprint. So, the book did cause, some of my fans got upset because they were like, well, you're writing political books now, and I don't like that. But I'm like, look, I'm a writer. I just want to tell good stories.
You have lived experience to share, and whether it's about mechs or something a little bit more tethered to reality, this is your outlet for yourself, despite the reader or the engagement.
A lot of sci-fi is cautionary tales. Like
it is.
A lot
hypotheticals.
A lot of the great ones. Yeah.
And, sometimes you have to push people into an area of discomfort. And, there's the usual name calling. In our society, you can't offer a differing perspective anymore. The woke crowd that's out there doesn't like it when someone says, well, I want to tell a story where the heroes are all the conservative people who are trying to reclaim the government. They don't want to hear that. They're like, oh my God, you're a terrible person for doing that. And I'm like, no, this was what would happen in these circumstances. And, it's just, to me, it's good storytelling. And
right. You mentioned a lot of characters that you have in your novel. So I'm sure you have a range of characters that are not all absolutist to a far extreme right conservative. And honestly, if you had not designated yourself a conservative in your own political views and attached yourself to this book with your actual name, people might take this differently. I mean, you have people who write stories where it is a cautionary tale, where the apparent hero character is more of an anti-hero, and you have these other mentorship characters, and everything culminates in this generally broad message that teaches about the folly of man and overcomes that of the self and of the people that they encounter.
Yeah, this one, we have some characters that are definitely in the gray space, and the character arcs are important on this because the Blue Dawn series, I'm on book 5 of that right now as well. And, it's going to go on for about 10 to 12 books, I think, potentially more.
That's fantastic.
But the character arcs are very complicated. And, much like everyone else, the characters are flawed. And I like flawed characters because most of the human beings I know have some sort of quirk or flaw to them. And it helps define who they are. It's how they overcome those flaws that makes them interesting people. And that's what I try to do with the characters. And the stories happen all on their own. A lot of the stuff for Blue Dawn and for A Most Uncivil War, the second book, is pulled from today's headlines. I watch the news. I take quotes of what people, especially the politicians, are saying they're going to do or what they want to do. I simply amp that up a little bit, and it really gives a good story basis.
For the benefit of any of your prospective readers listening to this channel right now, would you say that your characterization of the heroes in your book are religious types in general, or is, I don't always like to associate conservative with specifically just religious, okay? And you're going to see different personalities on this channel between myself and Dwight alone, let alone the people who are not here today with us. So I just want to see if that's like something you would say is heavily empowering in your novel for like religion.
I touch on religion in the first book because one of the characters that's involved is a priest, and we talk about what happens under a totalitarian regime that's progressive and the attacks on religion. Because, the state tries to essentially impose the moral guidelines, and they really target religion as a means to remove them from being an authority on setting morals for people.
Sure.
And I do go down that path. It's not a major character, but it's a sub-story, but it sets the context for the universe as to how religion is treated and what a progressive totalitarian regime would do with religion. And I base that solely on politicians. We need to start taxing the churches, and the churches, shouldn't be weighing in on birth control or weighing in on abortion and things like that. We've seen, physical attacks on churches that have taken place since the overthrow of Roe v. Wade.
Of any denomination, though. So we see this, and we want to protect these people no matter what your denomination might be or your background. So, I mean, when we talk about the free speech being eliminated in general, we talk about persecution against any religion, any faith, any design that people might have in their own minds, including an author writing a story that we're coming to here. But as long as your book is not just coming from the pulpit itself directly, anybody could read your book and gain something from it, right? An insight
absolutely.
into what this looks like.
It's entertainment. And that, and people forget that. I'm not trying to necessarily shove a message down anybody's throat. It's just entertainment, and it's designed to make you think. And I think good fiction does that. Fiction should make you go, I want to question some of what I'm watching on television right now. I got to rethink some of the things that are going on because I've now looked at it from a very different perspective. And I think fiction drives that and should drive that. Not all fiction. I mean, I've written a ton of gaming fiction for BattleTech over the years. I mean, I did for almost 37 years for BattleTech. I didn't impose any of my political stuff in any of those books, but some books I want to be able to do that with. And Blue Dawn was a creative opportunity where I just couldn't pass it up. Unfortunately, with the agenda that's out there right now in our society, you're seeing a lot of these things come to fruition. I talk about in Blue Dawn and Most on Civil War about the Truth Reconciliation Committee, a group of the government that clears what is official data. Well, look at what the Biden administration pushed not too long ago with, hey, we have to have a governance board for misinformation. It's like, Jesus, you guys are taking stuff right out of my book, and I'd like royalties on it if you're going to do that.
Well, it's funny. It's funny because like people, what you're describing isn't even, it's not even unique to America or American politics. Like attacking churches is what totalitarian governments throughout history do. The very first thing they do is they attack the pulpit and they attack the school. They'll line up teachers in a firing squad and shoot them all. They'll make certain religions, criminal. I don't know if it's still this way in China, but I remember about 20 years ago when I went over there, I went over to teach teach people how to be youth pastors because I was a youth pastor at the time, and we had to be snuck around underground to get to these secret churches because if we were caught, we would be arrested. We'd be thrown in prison just for having a Bible or talking about the Bible. You would have to smuggle, like secretly hide a Bible in a box and wrap it in tissues and stuff. This is not something that is like Democrats taking it personal or leftists taking it personal. It's like, I'm sorry, buddy, it's a tell. But if I have to sit and watch a movie, there's good movies that talk about the cautionary tales of religions that are out of control. And sure, the cis white Christian religion is the flavor of choice for Hollywood, but it doesn't make the message any less valid. And I have to sit there and take it, as a Christian, I have to sit there and take this, very unflattering, picture of whoever this character is that's a villain that happens to look like me and have my faith and all this stuff. But at some point I had to be like, okay, this is fiction. It is also rooted in a bit of reality. And there's a story, there's a message here. And people taking these things, like when you're talking about the ministry of disinformation, you're not the first, to say we got to cancel you for writing that. Go look at Terry Gilliam's Brazil. If that's not a cautionary tale for everything radical left, I don't know what is. And you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
And it's a great movie.
It is. One of the themes I weave into this, because I write military history as well. I've written a number of military history books. And so I'm a historian. And one of the things I actually weave into this is the French Revolution. Because when revolutionaries win through violence, they always have to have the next target. They have to have another target. Otherwise, what happens is they start turning on themselves. And we saw that with Robespierre after the French Revolution. here he was the main instigator of the overthrow of the king. And then what happens? I forget how many months it was later, the revolutionaries turned on Robespierre and cut his head off. And that theme kind of weaves into the Blue Dawn series because, you always have to have a target. And you see this with the woke and the cancel crowd. They always have to have a target. They have to have somebody that they're going after. And when they've gone after that person and done what they've done, they move on to the next one because they always have to have somebody that's the villain in their story. And, whether that person's really a villain or not is an interesting concept. And some of the stuff I've been going through with the cancel crowd really has been very enlightening. And it's been very, creatively spurring me on to doing some fascinating stuff in my own writing because I've experienced some of this oppression directly. They've come after me personally and professionally. And, it's great to be able to kind of channel that into something positive. And for me, the Blue Dawn series is great. And then I'm back writing science fiction military stuff with Land and Sea. And I'm having a blast. I've never had more creative control than I've had in decades over what I'm working on. I'm writing about characters I truly enjoy, and I don't have to answer to anybody who goes, well, you got to have a female in this chapter because you haven't had a female in the last 2 chapters.
You're not working with a cultural consultant on these projects?
Yeah, my last editor was doing stuff like that with me. He's like, well, it's kind of a sausage fest in here. And I'm like, you may want to look around. You have no females working in your company, your game company. Sometimes it's just a bunch of guys on a call. Sometimes it's a bunch of girls on a call. Sometimes there's guys and girls. You can go 2 or 3 chapters without having a female. I'm not going to put a female in or change the sex of a character so that you can check a box. Mm-hmm. And I've been through that crap lately.
It's disrespectful. It's disrespectful to that character, really. It's like basically saying you're not important because the plumbing doesn't match what I want it to match. It's people are more than their genitals.
But unfortunately there is that whole community within the gaming and fiction industry that's what they look for. I had somebody reach out to me not too long ago and they said, how many transgender characters are you going to put in your novels in the next year? And I said, first of all, this is bait. There is no good answer to this. And if I tell them I've put somebody in, they're going to say, well, who? I didn't know they were transgender. It's
that's a loaded question. I mean, you can't even speak from experience at all. So what would you do to do justice to the character anyway?
It's bad faith.
Well, and my whole thing is I have no problem having a gay character or a transgender character or whatever, as long as it's pertinent to the character, as long as it feeds the story, as long as it's important. But, just doing it so that somebody goes, well, we made him do that. I'm sorry. I'm not going to surrender creative control for people that, just want their moment in the sun to be able to say, I bullied this author into doing this. That's bullshit on a stick, and I'm not going to do it. Sorry.
No, grateful to hear it.
Perfect. That's how we talk here.
That is.
You'd mentioned that you'd mentioned that you'd been attacked personally, professionally, and personally, and we can go into that. But then you also made a something that people don't realize a lot is a lot of times being cut loose is like being freed to fly. And it sounds like that's really blew up in their faces. They set out to destroy you, and what they really did was set you free.
Yeah, we put out this week the announcement for Land and Sea that it's coming out in January 12th. It's already been on 3 Amazon bestseller lists, and it's pre-order. Okay, the woke crowd actually has made me more popular and given me better footing than they ever did before. And I'm actually going to make more money doing it. I'm reaching a bigger audience. I don't know what they thought they were accomplishing other than, going after a 60-year-old guy to try to drive him out of doing, what he enjoyed doing for 37 years. It was rough. But, I think what you can either sit and wallow in self-pity, or you can pick up yourself up by your bootstraps and go kick some ass and stack some bodies. And that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm going to go out and be a damn success. And, they can scream and holler and call me whatever little names they want to. Their little lied made up labels that they like throwing at me. And whatever, you can go do. You're just yelling in an empty echo chamber. Nobody's listening to you. I'm out selling books. So, and you move to a point, I think, as well with this cancel crowd. There's a point where you just become uncancelable, and you find the right allies, the right people that you associate with, so that you can move forward and do what you need to do. And I don't think, I've heard a lot of people say we need to build a parallel economy and stuff. And I'm like, it's already out there. You don't have to build it. There's companies out there that don't give a damn about your politics. Their whole thing is, you're an established writer and you have a fan base. Great. We'll have you work for us. They don't care about that stuff. So you don't have to build a parallel economy. You can embrace the economy that's already out there.
Yeah, see, on this channel, we actually try to promote that a lot. And then obviously, smaller guys need the support, all the help they can get. But a lot of the companies themselves are falling into that rut where they're feeling that they cannot actually operate that way that you just described, in which they can support any piece of work that's coming out if it doesn't meet all those, all that criteria, check all those boxes. And we really do need to keep propping them up and giving them support. If it's just buying the products, that's great. But actually talking about the things that you're told you can't talk about, and letting these companies know that they can be liberated to be neutral at worst.
Yeah.
They can be neutral enough to just put out a product that they don't have to politically agree with, pander to, associate with, and they can just become more art for more people and actually diversify the industry.
I agree, because I don't think you have, like I said, there's so many companies out there that just are like, look, we don't care what the cancel culture crowd is screaming about. And if you look back at the gaming industry, let's be honest, it started with wargaming. Okay, so somebody had to play the Nazis on every board game that you played for World War II.
Yeah.
Or the Kaiser or whatever. You had to play those games. So are you going to now do away with 3/4 of the wargaming industry because they covered battles like Stalingrad, and Stalingrad had Germans, and the Germans were Nazis, and the Nazis were bad. So now we can't have a game on Stalingrad. You're kidding me, right? We can't.
So the argument they present tends to be that you do it with too much fervor. So I come in and I say, hey, I'm so excited to play the Nazis today. I can't wait to go wear paraphernalia around Nazism and espouse tenets of fascism in my daily life. And that's what they're afraid of. Now, you can be afraid of anything, and you can be afraid of any form of free speech. You can be afraid of that particular character. You can be afraid of the acts they might carry out. We do see a pretty solid amount of violence on the rise in this country. So it's understandable for people to be afraid of the outcomes, right? Of introducing young minds to such things. And what do we got, a comment?
Yeah.
Okay, we got something from the peanut gallery.
What does it say about us if we played the Nazis versus the Allies by ourselves and the Nazis won?
It happens.
Yeah, right. It's alternate universe. There's novelization of that too. And you can think about that, and you can talk about it, and you can theorize about it, and you can come to different conclusions. I don't want to get so much into MCU, Marvel Universe specifically, and all the comfort food that provides people that something like your novel might not. But you want to critically think about the universe around you in a future sense. And so does anybody else who's trying to think about the universe we're living in right this second and what could possibly come from it. If we don't act, or we do act, or if we're forced to act in any certain way. And that's, I think, what your novel is generally about, right? Being forced to act a certain way, to be censored in a certain way, to be criticized, persecuted, until there's only one side in power, which always has to, as you mentioned earlier, eat itself, because There can never be one singular power.
Yeah, and I look at the industry and I kind of cringe a little bit because I'm like, look, we could, if you remove all the things that are offensive, there's nothing left. We've all played D&D probably on this call. I've been playing it for a long time. War crimes are actually a part of D&D. I'm sorry. There's a lot of times that, I don't see a lot of prisoners being taken. Okay.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people being killed, be it goblins, orcs, whatever. And you sit there and kind of go, well, so what if you start imposing rules that you can't do that? Well, you remove the gameplay aspect. And I think you said it earlier, it's escapism. People want to play something so that they are not dealing with all of this crap that's out in the real world. Yeah. And when we remove that fun aspect from it and go, well, wait, you can't have fun anymore. It's crazy. I talked to a guy who was running BattleTech at a game store, and he was totally upset. He said, I ran a game to introduce people to BattleTech. And he said, I had too many people show up. This one woman showed up, or this person showed up, and I gave her a miniature. It wasn't painted. He said, I didn't know that many people were going to show up. And that person got the only unpainted miniature. It's not a big deal. We all know what we're talking about here, right? This person went on YouTube and was like, I was singled out because I was transgender. This person degraded me by giving me just a gray plastic miniature. Everybody else got one that was painted. This was targeted. This guy, all he was doing was running a freaking demo game in a game store to get people introduced to the hobby. And now he's being blasted online. And the game store is like, I don't know if I want you running stuff anymore because it's causing a problem. My game store was mentioned in these YouTubes. And he's trying to reason with this person. And this person's like, oh, no, you discriminated against me. This was personal. And it's like, you've ruined gaming, not just for yourself, but for anybody that this guy would have run the game for. By the way, this person didn't complain while they were there. They waited till they went home.
Yep.
Yeah.
They didn't give the guy an opportunity to fix the problem. They gave it.
Yeah. They're totally spineless little bastards because they're on the internet. And, that's the woke crowd that came after me. That's the game they play. They love being little voices on the internet. And it's crazy. It's absolutely insane. And, people want to get away from that crap. They want to just have fun. I want to, I was telling my grandson today, I said, I've been reading about the OK Corral. I really want to find a good game where I can have cowboys shooting up each other.
Oh, you're talking to the right guy.
I'm like, that's what I want to play next. That's my next big thing. Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's his game right there. So
I want to just, I used to have the $5 copy of Boot Hill, and I wish I still had it because the damn thing goes for like $700 on eBay now.
Jeez.
The old TSR one. And I was like, it was a fun game because you just loaded up shotguns, went out in the street. I said, your Boot Hill character, it took you longer to create your character than that character ever lasted in a single round of combat.
It's like Friday Night Firefight, like Cyberpunk for cowboys.
Yeah, it was fun. I love that stuff. And he was like, yeah, that does sound kind of fun. As long as it's quick and easy, that's the niche we go to. So I'm spending time with my grandson now, getting him into gaming, and he's enjoying it. But he's still in the Pokemon age. He's still playing that type of stuff where he's just now going, okay, when are you going to run me Dungeons and Dragons? I'm like, okay.
It's great. It's good to hear.
I'll run it, but don't get too emotionally attached to your character.
There you go. That's good gameplay, right? Realism.
You're going to spend a lot of time building your backstory, and I'm going to just
speaking of with your land and sea game. You're talking about how you can either do a role play or you can do the tabletop. I'm assuming you have a character. I'm assuming you have a robot. You're not going to do the BattleTech thing, are you? Where I spend 12 freaking hours drawing circles all over the arms and things.
Hell no.
These characters are not the same scale as BattleTech, right? There's a huge differentiation.
No,
between
our
your products.
stuff's going to be 28 millimeter.
Right.
The Asher rigs are this tall.
Okay.
You know, they're more like power armored suits. Okay.
Okay, so yeah, I was reading. I'm sorry, I was reading something about that too, where they were saying that you're that there was like this narrative that you'd violated your deal with BattleTech, and you're like, no, the mechs are actually they're small, and I was like, okay, so it's kind of like Exo Squad.
Yeah, it's not that far off from that scale, you know.
Nice.
And what I really want, you know, the problem with I always had with BattleTech, I always loved BattleTech. First of all, you know, this whole thing hasn't soured me to BattleTech at all. I love the game and I love the universe. There's a 5% of the fan base I just don't want to deal with because they're crazy wokesters at this point. And that's really where it left me. But I like the game, but I always joked with BattleTech, it's the only game where you could spend 6 hours fighting a 30-second battle.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
because you're sitting there going, okay, I got scribbled a little dot and I got to roll on this table and I got to check. You roll. Now, we're not going to go at that level. It's a very small unit action focus. A lot of combined arms, and it's modern warfare. It's set 20 years in the future.
Cool.
So,
Yeah.
think, you know, we got guys that can whip out a Carl Gustav and aim it at a power armor suit. You know, we're going to have some fun doing stuff like that. And there's aliens, and it's just going to be fun, blow stuff up. But you know, part of what we went through too is I said the character creation's got to be quick, because bullets and acid sprayers and all this other crap that's going to be on this battlefield is going to kill characters quick. So you want to have it so that, you know, you take out your militia unit or your army unit and there's going to be some attrition. But the guys that survive are going to skill up because they're survivors. And so we really built it around that kind of focus. Like, okay, it should only take about 15 minutes to create a character. Boom. And with BattleTech, the role-playing game came on so much later than the board game, and it was always a square peg in a round hole. You never could quite make it work right. And we really started from the ground up going, let's talk about how the character creation works and how that fits into the tabletop experience. So it's a lot of fun that way. So I've been having a good time.
It's great to hear that you can put such a long-term effort into a similar universe as you've been working on for all these years. You've added so much lore yourself to BattleTech. What would you say is your personal favorite of your works in BattleTech? Just a bit of a shameless plug here.
Boy, when all is said and done, it would either be Forever Faithful or it would be Betrayal of Ideals. Those are my favorite, and it's just something near and dear to my heart. I like underdog stories, period. I like characters that are very deeply flawed, and those two books have a lot of flawed characters. You know, and I love Last Stands. I'm a big nothing is more fun than the story of the Alamo. I will watch there's like 4 different Alamo movies. I'll watch them all. I love watching the movie Zulu. I probably watch Zulu once a month. I pop it in and watch it. The Battle of Rorke's Drift, it's just fun to watch when you watch it. And even the current movies like Fury.
Dunkirk, I've been watching like crazy.
You know, Fury is a last stand. And you know, I think that brings out some of the coolest aspects of characters. So to me, those were the books that I enjoyed the most. And I think the fans enjoy those too, you know, but it's hard to say.
Oh, absolutely. You can relate to a lot of the characters within the film or novel, and by the end, you might have died. And that's what makes all the role-playing games we play so exciting, because you are maybe not going to make it out of this story that you're writing for yourself.
Oh, yeah. Aliens is one of my favorites. You watch the movie Aliens, it's like you start that movie, it's like, he's going to die, he's going to die, she's dead. Yeah, it's just, and you kind of look forward to the death scenes, actually. Yeah. Yeah, because some of them are glorious. I mean, they're really good. That movie was so well done on so many levels. There's parts of it I just absolutely adore.
Bill Paxton's arc was one of the greatest, going from like a hot shit talker to seeing him immediately crumble under the weight of actual terror. Like you realize, oh, this guy's just a sissy. And then finally building up this courage to be like, no, F this. And he goes out swinging like a
Oh
champ.
yeah. Well, and what was it? The lieutenant, that he's a by the
Yes.
book. He hasn't been on only one other combat drop.
Yeah.
And in the end, he goes out with the badass of the Marines.
The most badass Marine there is. Yeah.
Vasquez and him are down there with the grenade and they're pulling the pin. I'm like, that's redemption, man. And I love good stories where characters redeem themselves.
That's awesome. Well, all right. Anything else in the works in the future that you want to talk about? That you can talk about?
Honestly, I've got so many books in the hopper right now. It's wild. Like I said, I'm on book 5 of both the Blue Dawn series, and I've got only 2 more chapters to do on the new book for Land and Sea, book 5. So I've got more writing done, and it's been weird because I did this book in 9 weeks.
Oh wow!
Which, for a book this size, the amount of throughput I'm getting is absolutely incredible, and it's fun to do. Oh my God, is it fun! I love the characters because the story that I'm working on right now. What inspired me the most was watching Kelly's Heroes, where they're robbing a bank in the middle of World War II. And I was like, okay, if you had an alien invasion, wouldn't we try to do this?
Yeah.
and that's all the comparison you get to Kelly's Heroes is that kind of a link is what if we told the story about some guys who, they're sick and tired of fighting the war and they've got an opportunity to loot a bank in Beverly Hills. It's behind enemy lines. What would that be like? And I was like, okay, let's have some fun with that. And some of the characters are downright entertaining. They're interesting on a lot of levels. And I'm just having fun with I'm playing role-playing games in my head with dialogue.
That's awesome.
So how much influence have you had on the actual gameplay itself? You've been involved in that?
For
the, what is it? Land and Sea?
Oh, Land and Sea.
Yeah,
I did the actual design work.
Okay, so that's all yours.
I did a 100-page design document for the role-playing game and tabletop.
Oh, wow.
So that's in development right now. We're tweaking. We're trying to streamline it. I think Dwight made the point. This isn't going to take 8 hours to scribble dots, right? We're not doing that. But we also want to make it real. We want to make it a realistic game. One of the things about BattleTech that always frustrated me was, I have so much armor on one part of my mech and you don't damage any of the internal stuff until every bit of the armor is gone. And I'm like, that's not how armor works at all.
Right.
And if you shoot at a tank, you could disable a tank on the first round, depending on where you hit and what you hit. So we're trying to capture this. What we're really trying to do is get more closer to a modern military game, which has a lot of implications in terms of body count and stuff, because it's just, it's a lethal environment. And it makes some of the things that people focus on initially, like ranges on weapons, go away, because this is a very tactical game. So if you're firing a machine gun, it can shoot at the whole game map. Hitting is a different thing. You guys know this. If you pull a gun out and shoot, it's easy to shoot somebody who's 5 feet away. If they're 10 feet away, it starts getting much harder. When they're 20 feet away, you better be able to shoot a gun and know how to shoot it.
Right.
Especially if they're moving. I always say paintball is a great way to train people on the actual ins and outs of combat. Go play paintball for a weekend. The guy standing there, he's going to die. The guy that's running, he's hard as hell to hit.
Right.
Yeah.
Stay moving. Yeah. Oh, it's very cool, man. I'm actually really happy to hear that. That's your design in the game. You said 20 years into the future is the setting. So technologically speaking, would you say you incorporated like an accelerated evolution art technology to what we've seen in the past 20 years versus the last 40 before that? You know what I'm speaking on here. The exponential growth of technology.
Well, we had a war with Russia. It's called the Russia-Bratva War that takes place in our universe. And there's an event that triggers us attacking Russia or violating Russia's sovereignty.
Right.
A hacking attack, which suddenly becomes really plausible
Yeah.
in our current environment.
Yeah.
And it leads to Russia attacking the United States. They attack us in the one place they can. They invaded Alaska. And we sent the troops in. And the evolution is you start with better armored suits for the soldiers for protection. Those become augmented suits, which then evolve into the Asher rigs, which are the powered armor suits, where it's kind of like the suits very similar to the mecha that you saw in, what's that James Cameron movie?
Avatar.
They're similar to that. So there's a very logical progression there that we go through. And some of the older suits are around, just like you'd have some of the older M1 tanks floating around and stuff. So there are some improvements, dramatic, on some weapon systems, mostly lightweight rail guns and stuff that we've overcome. The power systems become a real challenge. We don't play that whole game of heat and mechs. It's more of power management more than anything else. And I think that makes it a little more interesting and gives you a different dynamic for the game. So it's a lot of fun. It's just, you think about when you played Starfleet Battles as a kid, if you ever played that, you were always allocating your power around and stuff. And that was kind of fun to do.
Yeah. It's management of a resource in a battle game. It's very exciting. You have augmented.
Sounds like Tom Clancy's spirit is alive and well with Blaine. I'll keep an eye on it.
Thank you.
Got some fans. You said you have like augmented men in armor and technology, weaponry. Do you have any supplemental drone technology going on in this game?
Oh, yeah.
Here we go.
Oh, my God. Well, because, we call them Joy Boys because they use joysticks, the drone pilots. We use what are called GRDs, ground robotic drones, and they're semi-autonomous. And so you actually have soldiers on the field with basically an armored up iPad. And you can program the waypoints for these things, and they operate autonomously. But you have different drones for different missions. So you have some that are there to carry heavy weapons or carry ammo. So that you're not burdening a soldier carrying your heavy gear. You have a ground drone that does it.
So they might be frontline, but they might be supply line.
Right. So, if I need a Carl Gustav, call the drone up and have him bring it to me. And
Nice.
That drone doesn't worry about being shot at and stuff. You have some that are combat drones, which, everybody wants that. And I get that. But I'm a little worried anytime we'd have a drone that has a chain gun mounted on it and can target on its own. That always scares the crap out of me. Mostly because every computer programmer I've ever met, I would never have them program a drone with a gun. But we also have some that are used. They can carry medical supplies. They can extract the wounded. So you can strap the wounded guy to the side of the drone and the drone will drag him off the battlefield. So they really do serve some big functions in the game, and it makes it a little more interesting. And they're probably some of the more expendable, when you think about the pieces on the map are going to be the drones.
Yeah, you're going to have different strategies, and not necessarily. There's factions, obviously. There's a Russian faction and a U.S. faction, and you're going to have different nations in there too. I know you mentioned an invasion of Russia with another country also.
This invasion actually takes place from the oceans of the world. The aliens have landed 5 years ago, and they conquered what they wanted. They're aquatic, and they use genetic engineering. Where we armor up, they genetically engineer their soldiers, and all their weapons are biologically based. So when they attack every coastal city on the globe, and so it's you do get. We bring in some of the British stuff going on. We talk about what's going on in Spain and India. There's a whole subplot with Hawaii that's going on that we don't get into. We reference it, but we have kind of we have a plot for what's going on in Hawaii. But book 1 will deal with the initial attack at Guam and in Los Angeles. So
Okay.
what we wanted was for gamers to be able to play in their home cities, to take
Nice.
out, and I'm not joking. I have a map of Beverly Hills right here that I'm working off of. We wanted people to be able to just print out their local map and go, hell, we can do this. We can fight our little battle right here.
That's great.
And if you think about it, most people live close to a body of water, and that opens things up. Even you in Chicago.
Yeah, right.
You get spared, Dwight. You're in, Vegas. But I do send an attack force to destroy Hoover Dam for what it's worth.
Well, what about Jacksonville? That's all I care about. We got two big naval bases there.
Jacksonville's going to get toast.
Yeah, okay.
It'll be long underwater by then anyway. Don't worry.
Florida as a whole is going to be a mess, but it's a lot of fun. We wanted people to be able to role play in their own cities and stuff, and I think people are going to enjoy that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I know there's a few role playing games. What's the one that's set in Chicago? I know with all the ghosts.
Chill.
No, you know what? I won't remember it. That's fine. Some kind of Tales. I forget what it is, but yeah, it's so great to have your own city. I mean, they compartmentalized my neighborhoods in my city for this game. I'm never gonna remember what it was. I'm sorry, but there's like the downtown section is where all the ghosts live, and everything else is just run down for different reasons. I wish I could remember. Sorry, guys. But yeah, it's a fantastic way to experience your own city in a fantasy environment like that.
Well, and because it's only 20 years in the future, tech has evolved a little bit militarily, but regular stuff is still regular stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not a markedly different world where you're going, okay, I don't understand what's going on here.
Yep.
So I think some of that kind of helps people bridge the gap a little bit. It's a lot of fun. I think it's a fun universe to play in. And like I said, blowing up aliens, always a blast.
Yeah, so you have a unification of mankind, but there's still going to be extra story in there or a little room for some conflict, right?
There's no unification.
Yeah.
Mankind hates each other.
Right.
It's real clear. The Russians are still pissed at us. And because of this little Russia-Latvia war, it fractured NATO. So we have an alliance that's very weak with NATO right now, at least in the game setting. And unfortunately, we're seeing some of that happen too, I think, with this winter coming. Winter in Europe may fracture NATO all over again for us here with their fuel prices and stuff. But it really is kind of a cool thing because each of the countries is fighting it on their own. They're just fighting it in a different way. And, it was fun doing a chapter on the Indian Army and their Asher rigs that they have fighting off these aliens that are trying to attack one of their nuclear power plants, and a similar scenario in Spain. And Spain has bought all the German gear, so they've got the, wonderful German, Asher rigs that are going into battle. It just makes it fun.
It's awesome. So it's awesome to see you so excited about your product, man.
Oh,
we're all here for.
I love gamers and I love gaming. That's why when you contact me and say, hey, do you want to be on here? I'm like, okay, if we're going to talk gaming, I'm in, man. This is going to be fun. Because, gaming is just something I turned 60 just a few weeks ago. And I got to be honest with you, man. It's like I'm still a 14-year-old kid when it comes to the gaming stuff. I'm painting. I have a whole table where I got my 3D printer set up and I'm painting my miniatures. It's within view of this right now.
Same.
And it's like, you know what? Embrace the tech, embrace the changes, paint some minis, throw them on a map, have a blast. That's what people want.
That's been your message. Can't we get back to gaming and let the social politics out the window?
Yeah, let's just roll some damn dice. Can't we just have fun? Why?
Speaking of that, Dwight, can we make sure we get a couple copies to him of High Noon for him and his?
Oh, sure. I thought you were going to say, speaking of rolling the dice and having fun, Dwight, don't you have somewhere to get to in Vegas?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd love to send a copy of High Noon to you because especially
cool.
if you want to help your son get into some tabletop because
grandson. Yeah, I definitely
grandson. It's a miniatures game but the combat is all done with cards. So if he's predispositioned to like Pokemon or whatever, cards, it would be right up his alley. The rule book is crap, but there's a digital rule book through 3rd edition on the website. So and then if you have any questions,
cool.
Beware, there's an Indian faction, and they're actually called Indians.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That might spoil your grandson for.
No, my grandson is so funny. He was talking to me today. I was taking him to his guitar lessons, and he was like, "I want an Elon Musk T-shirt for Christmas." Elon Musk is so great. What he's doing over at Twitter is so great. And I'm like, man, you're making your grandpa so happy.
So proud. That's awesome.
You hear a 14-year-old kid go, "That's my idol. That's who I want to be when I grow up as Elon Musk." I'm like, okay, this is awesome.
Yeah. Try to accomplish something. Reach for the skies. The old message of be yourself, be the best you.
Well, he totally identifies with what Elon Musk is doing, and he thinks it's funny over at Twitter. I worked for 25 years at Ernst & Young in IT technology. I retired 3 years ago early. And he's heard me tell the stories about working in IT, and I'm like, yeah, I totally bought it when Elon's like, "Yeah, I'm going to get rid of 2/3 of these people." He goes, "Isn't that going to shut down Twitter?" I said, "No. Trust me, it's not that nearly as bad as you think it is." It's great. It's great to see that there are kids out there too that aren't getting all caught up in this crap that the adults are.
Well, I think that when we're talking about this whole wokeism stuff, like I think we are reaching the turning point, like where even companies are like, "Nah, enough is enough." I think we're still there. There's still things happening.
The special interests are still there. All the groups for that.
Yeah, but I think we're getting to the point where people like just like COVID, like. I'm here in Vegas and I'm listening to all these, and I've been doing a comedian circuit. I've been supporting my buddy who's a comedian. I've been listening to all these comedians that he's with. And these are people that you would not think, you would think that these are like hardcore leftists, and they might be. Like actually one of them like totally did a whole thing against Trump supporters, but then they go right out and they're like, F COVID, this whole stupid COVID thing is BS, it's dumb. Everything they're talking about is dumb. And they'd have whole bits about how society is just stupid for falling for it. And I think that's kind of a microcosm of the woke pandemic. I think people are kind of coming to the reality that this is dumb. This outrage, this woke outrage, is dumb, and ruining people's lives over it is dumb. And
a lot of people lost friends, and they're trying to recover them. They've lost relationships, spouses, etc., over these major conflicts that were funneled into that entity of 2020. This microcosm of an existence that we were all suffering, where all your conflicts were the biggest thing you had going on at that time. And everyone kind of wants to just go back into the open air again.
I agree. I got tired of it quick, and I'm sure you guys did too. And I didn't buy the mask thing, but I wore them because I got tired of people looking at me funny if I walked around without a mask, or being told I couldn't be in a gas station without a mask. My wife accidentally walked in a gas station without a mask. She just didn't think about it, walked in, and this woman's like, "You're trying to kill my grandmother." Oh my God, you're walking in here without a mask, you're going to be killing people. And it's like, okay, this fear that's out there, and this pseudo terror, and this belief that a victim is a hero instantly has twisted things the wrong way. And I think that's been a huge part of the problem with the woke movement. They like labeling themselves in some way, shape, or form as a victim. And whatever it is, whatever the little niche that they found, that's what they want to claim you're oppressing them, because they believe in their hearts that victims are heroes. And we saw this with George Floyd, and we've seen it with a lot of people who have wallowed in this and turned it around. And sometimes victims are just victims. They're not necessarily heroic because they're a victim.
Right.
We see it's a contortion of reality that it doesn't hold water for very long. I think you're right, Dwight, to a certain degree. Some of this is winding down, and I think the first clue of that was when they started asking for amnesty.
Yes.
When they started going, "Hey, mistakes were made, but let's bygones be bygones and move on. And it's like, the best cartoon I saw that was they showed witches being burned, and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
wow, they're
Yeah.
burning. And then they
Yeah.
go, well, both sides made mistakes.
Right.
And it's
Right.
like, no, they didn't. You burned people, and now you're going, well, let's not take it out on us. That's not fair. When they start asking for amnesty, that tells me it's like, okay, we know that the axe is about to fall in some way, shape, or form, sociologically or otherwise. And yeah, I think it's a rough spot for them to be at.
Yeah, I think
They need to get
earlier
out of my
sign of
hobby.
that.
They need to
Yeah.
get out of my hobby. I
Yeah,
just want
right.
to play
Yes.
games.
Yeah. That's that is definitely a thing. And as Eddie said, we've all felt it. We've all been there. We've all had the hate campaigns. We've all had the cancellations. And it's just and we've all had to sit there and just be like, I just want to play a game. I just want to play games.
Yeah. Well, and if
I don't even mind playing games with these woke tards. Like, I don't care. Just don't fudge the dice. Don't hide cards into your sleeve. And that's it. That's literally it. You can be whatever you want, believe whatever you want. Just don't cheat. And I'll play a game. But just for the love of God, can we just please play a game? Oh my God.
They can't get past that though, because they look at it and go, yeah, but your politics are wrong. And
Right.
I don't
The pressure is too high in their heads, and they have to share that with you.
Yeah. They feel that they've got to take you down in order to move themselves up. It's the old thing of, how do you raise a bridge? Well, you lower the water.
Yeah. It's so funny because these are the same people, and I've always wanted to make a little comic of this, but these are the same people that have the coexist bumper stickers on their cars. Like, they're the same people. Coexist. Love is love, not hate. And then they just beat the tar out of you because you're not like them.
Well, the person that led the attack on me with Catalyst is a stalker. This person stalked me and threatened my life. I had to get law enforcement involved. I have a restraining order against this person. They're crazy. Okay, there's no other way to put it. And my publisher listened to that person.
One singular person, right? Or did they have much of a following that you had to be subject to?
They had a following, but several of them were sock accounts. They were running 3 or 4 accounts, and they had 3 or 4. I saw the total that I was shown was 5 complaints against me. After 37 years of writing Battletech, you're going to say, okay, we're not going to do business with this guy because these people complain. I've said the lead person leading this is a person, who is nuts, who I have a restraining order against. They've threatened my life, not just once. They did it on multiple occasions. And the court upheld it, and this person agreed to it. I'm like, this is nuts that they're doing this. And they're like, well, we just can't have this. Your political views are too radical. Well,
yeah, they can't stand up to any amount of controversy. What I find interesting is that you couldn't have brought a huge list of supporters who, whether they think differently of you than this accusation or not, even if they just wanted to say you're a great guy and your works are great and we want you around, that wouldn't matter. But you could even have people that actually have refutation in your favor of these claims, and it still wouldn't add up to anything because all you need is these few hands raised saying, bad juju from you.
Well, when it all comes down to it too, they've got other authors who write for them that write stuff that I find offensive as a conservative. They claim Antifa is, compared to the greatest generation, and that they're really freedom fighters, and that Antifa doesn't exist. They claim, hey, abortion's not killing children. They go through all of this stuff. It's absolutely nuts. And I said, so what are you going to do with them? And they said, well, we'll have a talking to with them. I said, but you're letting me go. So this is clearly political.
Right.
Oh,
and
no.
you're not really genuinely offended by the material. You just offends your sensibility, right?
Right.
You just like, this is something not for me, and I can go on living while it exists, and I just won't really partake in it. And at the same time, you're not going to go on a campaign to end its publication or existence, burn its books. And even if you went that far as to say these are terrible and I want to burn them, should anybody really take you so seriously as to then stop that from being published? I'd rather protect your right to burn the book, talk all the smack about it that you want, and then it still exists, and have that right preserved for every single one of us.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%, Eddie. It's just we've got to move past this. The whole system has always worked is if you don't agree with my politics, if it so deeply offends you, don't buy my books.
That's
just
it.
real simple.
And honestly, they're going to do you the favor of talking negatively about it in any amount of spaces, whether it was paper media 30 years ago or internet, social media, or anything otherwise that comes up in 20 years when we're all fighting in mech suits. We'll still be talking about things we don't like and don't like, and so be it. That's the power of having these brains that evolved, that we get to enjoy these works of art, fiction, critical of current politics or anything else, and all be able to have a say on that, and it not have to have the extreme outcomes that it seems to be able to at this point.
Well, and it's funny because they act like it. Oh, well, conservatives do this to people all the time, and it's like name them. You know, I'm real simple. Name them. You know,
remember when you wouldn't let us put our pedophile book in the children's public library for third graders? Remember when you wouldn't let us do that? All we wanted to do was show 5-year-olds what it's like for a grown man to put his penis in the butthole of another young little boy, and you wouldn't let us do that. So we are the same. Okay, it's exact same.
Yeah, it's not. No, pedophilia, I'm sorry, doesn't have a place. And it's like, you know, look, you know, the bottom line is we're not burning books. We're just going, we don't want them in front of the kids. If a parent wants to buy these kids this book, we're not saying you can't do that. We're not saying the book can't exist. These guys in the woke crowd are going, no, it's not enough. The book can't exist.
Can't exist, yeah.
That can't exist. And that's
we're saying, hey, listen, if you want to sell your book, take it to Amazon, take it to Barnes and Noble, get it published like everybody else, and don't force me to pay with my tax dollars. Go sell your book and let the market decide if people want to read your book. What they say is nobody is allowed to even buy your book. I'm going to make sure that no publisher carries it, no marketplace
distribution
carries it.
channels, anything.
Yeah, you will not. We will not allow you to feed your family and feed yourself. You will starve to death, die. You will die of starvation because of me before I let you sell your book. It's one thing. In my opinion, you're an idiot if the reason why you don't buy a book, not buying something because you don't like the person who created it, makes you kind of dumb. But getting in the way of other people, not allowing other people to buy a thing because you don't like the person who created it, makes you a tyrant.
Yes. It's just censorship has never been on the side of the good guy. And that's what we've seen with Elon Musk. He's going, look, the censorship has been one-sided. And if there's censorship, it's when somebody is censoring somebody else in a creative venue, be it a game about fishing, be it about Blue Dawn, be it about whatever. If you censor anything, you're the bad guy. That's the reality of it. Now, it's perfectly acceptable to say that book shouldn't be in a public school for children. Hey, you want to put it in the public library? That's a different discussion altogether because the parent takes the kid to the library. The parent's responsible for what the kid's reading. You want the parent to buy the book? Hey, go buy the book. I think it may be offensive, but hey, if you want to buy that for your kid, go ahead. I read a lot of authors who I hate their politics, absolutely hate their politics. But you know what? They're damn good writers. And so I read their books. And I never...
You might learn something about yourself by reading them. You question yourself in these instances where you're exposed to somebody else's politics or beliefs or any background they might have to contribute into their works. You will benefit.
Yeah.
And talk about conservative Christians. I'll tell you, there was a time where they were the worst about this. Like when they didn't like somebody's politics, they wouldn't go see their movie. Like they wouldn't go listen to their music. And I'm like, come on, like separate this. I don't like this. There's a lot. You're talking about Hollywood. Like you're not going to like any of these people's politics. You've been watching movies all the time, disagreeing with these people's politics. You're being stupid.
See, at the time, we were excited about that because they were also hyping up the film for the rest of us. We were like, great. That means it must be really good for us.
Yeah. Yeah, if the church is against it, I mean, remember when The Exorcist came out? Boy, you can't go there. It's a bad movie. It's like, okay, they had lines around the block to go see it, you know?
And that heavily contributed to the diaspora of the Catholic Church. I mean, that was reinforcing the people who believed in the potential of this demon, needing to be exorcised from you or your neighbor or someone you love. People related to that on a religious level. That was good for the church. They thrive on that damn fear.
Yeah. No, that's another thing is a lot of we've been bashing the left quite a bit here. I'll bash Christians all day long. I mean, but like there's a lot of times they would boycott like movies that had demons in it. And like you realize the demons are the bad guys, right? Like you realize that like the witches are they're actually the villains in the movie. Like no, there's no glorifying. Well, it's in there, therefore it's glorified. It's like, no, dummy. They're literally making them the villain. That's not how glorifying something works.
This is why I equate those two sides. Exactly
protests
that reason.
Don't work. Whenever, and especially now, I think they used to back in the 60s. If you try to boycott something now, it backfires on you every single time. Yeah, they're trying to cancel me. I'm selling more books than I ever did before. They tried, remember when they went for Goya not too long ago? It was like, oh, Goya contributed to Trump.
Yes.
Goya sales went up 300% for that quarter. So it's like, look, protests and boycott, you could you're going to boycott stuff all day. All you do is drive a whole different group to that person.
See, I'm in the Latin community, and they drove more Hispanics into Republican voting booths with that campaign. That was a shame for me because I'm not a Republican, guys. I mean, I'm usually the other voice in this channel and in a lot of venues where there's actually business being conducted, where I can still be a more classic liberal of the 90s and still have a hard time with what we're seeing right now on my side of things. That's why I equate the two together. I was trying to say with your mention of the church and people saying they won't see these things and nobody should see these things because it's the same exact type of censorship. Nobody should see these things. I don't like the representation of the thing I like. You shouldn't see something, even when, as you pointed out, when the demons are the bad guys. That's kind of the story we're all trying to enjoy, man.
Yeah,
without you,
Bible.
Yeah.
There's another side to that, and it's like I don't want to call it the Streisand effect, but it's like a reverse way that Gateway works. So like when the Christians, when the 700 Club was all against Dungeons and Dragons, okay, like huge campaigns against Dungeons and Dragons. I have a stack of those Dark Dungeons pamphlets just to periodically give to my friends as a gag gift. But like they were literally telling people they had all the Christian adults believing that this is like witchcraft and demonic and it's leading children down to the bowels of El Diablo, and nobody should keep your kids away from it. And all it did was encourage the kids to go look into it, to go like, what is this? And then they go and they see it. And here's the thing is then they realize that not only is it not everything that the 700 Club was purporting it to be, but it's actually kind of cool. It's actually kind of fun. And so it does two things. One, it drove traffic to the thing that they didn't want it to go to. And then two, it completely delegitimized the 700 Club for an entire generation. Like a whole further generation is like, F the 700 Club, you old crones. Like, you guys don't know anything about anything. You're a bunch of self-righteous busybodies that are ruining fun for people. There's a better way to go to church. F you. And where's the 700 Club today? I mean, maybe it exists, but it ain't 700 of them now.
No.
Maybe it's like 2 club.
I'll never forget during that period too, because I was running D&D groups in high school, and one of the parents called my mother and was like, I heard your son's running these games and there's kids from school going over there. What's really going on? Are you doing Satan worship? Are they drawing pentagrams on the ground? She goes, all I know is it's a bunch of kids. They laugh, they have fun, then they go out and get pizza.
Yeah.
She's like, we didn't have that much fun when we were kids. So, they're not doing anything weird. They're just rolling dice and they got paper and pencils.
And it was weird. Of course it was weird.
Yeah,
But it wasn't the
we were
weird that you
nerds.
want it to be so that you can demonize them and have a common enemy with Sally down the street.
But you're definitely right, that these guys, there's a segment of those people that the holier than thou crowd.
Every generation, it's the same type of person.
Yes.
All right. Rallying against something that 10 years prior they might have been cool with, but they hit that certain domestication age and they have to make sure that everyone knows about everyone else's problems and that those problems are at the forefront of every topic and conversation. That's it. Every 10 years, there's a new cycle of this character type. And we all then have to put down the fun we were having and deal with them and give them the attention they're seeking in whatever custom outfit that they're wearing. All right. That depicts who they are. So you can pick them out in any crowd. And then we figure it out. And then we go on to the next cycle of having fun until another generation spawns up and tries to say you can't have any more fun in my presence anymore.
Well, that's like I said, I'm 60 years old, but I'm a 14-year-old mentally and emotionally. I just have fun. I just like playing games, and I like being around gamers who enjoy playing games. It doesn't matter if it's a historical game, doesn't matter, what it is, if it's miniatures or if it's role playing. I just love playing games. I like the fun of it. It's storytelling. And that's where I come from, is storytelling. And I think everybody wants to be a good storyteller in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, we all do. We're enjoying ourselves just by thinking every time we have a chance to in solitude. We're coming up with our own potentials for ourselves in that very day, that very week, that month, that year. And that's you. That's you creating your environment for yourself. You're willing it into existence. One last note on this. Oh, you're going to go, yeah? I'm going to try to get one particular question for Blaine right now is, you're working with Modifius. You previously were working with, I'm sorry, what was the company that was doing Battletech?
That was Catalyst. I'm not working
Catalyst.
with Modifius. I'm just playing their products.
Oh, okay. You're established as an author. You don't really have to face cancel to the level that a startup publisher designer might have to. And we've got a new environment to work within where publication is not the same as it once was, where you created something, you went to an established publisher, they did all the next steps of manufacturing and marketing, going through supply chain A through Z. And we have a new environment where we're crowdsourcing a lot of things, okay? And if you're as familiar with that as I might be, or Dwight might be, or our other partner who's not here with us today, there is a lot of what we call shadow banning. There's a lot of censorship in the way of these platforms saying that they cannot stand to field the criticisms against them if they should ever platform something that might be even remotely controversial, or worse yet, the person's personal politics might get in the way of the public's purview of their platform, their site, their website, their web stores, whatever it might be that you're trying to put your art on. And so you cannot subsist, you cannot sustain, you cannot create within this environment, this industry. Have you yourself seen any of this, experienced any of this that you can speak on?
I've seen it. I talked to somebody recently who's been doing this through ComicGate. And some of the struggles that they've had to go to Indiegogo because Kickstarter doesn't like some of the creators, and I was like, that's crazy. At what point, I'll be honest with you, I've been reading comic books since I was a little kid, and I still read comics, go to the comic store every other week. I usually don't know who the writers and the artists and stuff are. I just pick up the books and read them, but apparently that's become a big thing. I think the gaming industry has always been a kind of a garage operation anyway, and I think a lot of people are being forced to go back to that model of, I'm not going to do a huge print run or whatever. I'm going to do something smaller, get started, build that fan base. But they're having to go through and do a lot of that stuff. I think Kickstarter What I'm more upset about is I see a lot of bigger companies now going to Kickstarter and running huge campaigns for
Right.
stuff.
Which is why I mentioned that this is actually the way of business at this point.
Yeah,
It's not standard distribution.
yeah. And what I've also seen, and I've bought a couple Kickstarters. I'm looking over here. I've got a couple on my shelf that I bought, but it's funny. A lot of those companies don't produce follow-on material. So they do the Kickstarter, it's a one and done thing. And if you want to have an ongoing role-playing or tabletop game, you got to be releasing new miniatures, new maps, scenario books, source books, um, all that type of material so that the universe is vibrant, that there's always something new that people can pick up and go, okay, this is kind of cool. I want to see what's going on with it. And we've had to look at it very holistically because when we did Land and Sea, we said, we want to be able to do comic books. We want to be able to do computer games. We want to be able to do novels and things along those lines. We're using the novels to help fund what we're going to do with the tabletop and miniatures game. So we have to kind of go down those stages to go, is what we're building a game or is what we're building a franchise? And
right.
It's a little bit different mindset that you have to kind of wrap your head around. I think I feel bad for a lot of the startup companies because they have a great game. I've played some really good, inexpensive games that I've purchased at conventions of guys sitting at a card table at a convention because he's got 8 boxes of his product. You pick them up and it's like, damn, this is actually a really good game. There's a lot of good games out there that I think they just don't get the right spin to them. They don't ever get the public exposure. And I think that it's getting harder out there. I think it's getting a little nastier too. I think to a certain degree, what's going to happen is you're going to see some lawsuits come out of this that are going to change that in the industry. Because this concept of shadow banning, while everybody knows it's happening and stuff, it's really going to get ugly when somebody says, fine, I'm going to sue Kickstarter for doing that. Because what Kickstarter's done is not set up a level playing field. Kickstarter is only setting up a level playing field for people of a certain political persuasion or belief system. Once those lawsuits start going through, you're going to see some changes, I think. It's going to take a while, though.
Right. Great. I wanted to hear your take on that. I'm glad you had some insight.
Well, I don't know. Does that align with what your thinking is?
Yeah, I mean, I can see the same issue coming up, historically with music, right? You're going to see tons of great musicians, singers, composers never get the light of day. Same thing's going to happen with novels. Same thing's going to happen with board games. And board games is a newer industry compared to those things. And we've always had that setting where the classic convention, where you go and showcase your wares for a first-time designer, is your springboard moment, you're hoping, right? You're spending the money and time going and traveling to a place where you hope people will actually pick up your game and enjoy it and tell any amount of other people. And then you might find yourself lucky to be in retail stores. And that's, again, your second springboard moment to where you might actually become a known designer. Now you got to start putting out more products like you were just mentioning a minute ago. You have to back up your ability with more in the industry, because one product isn't going to cut it. Certainly not anymore. And if it does, and you're lucky enough to be picked up by an established publisher, you won't even need crowdsourcing. And that's what everybody's hoping for. And that's what I'm speaking on with the classic problem anyone would have faced trying to get themselves known in music or novels previously. So I think we're going to end up seeing a reversion back to classic distribution publication. And that's genuinely my hopes.
I've stopped going to Gen Con. It got so incredibly politically charged. I stopped going. And some of it was controversies that you guys got sucked into. It was bad. And that really pissed me off because I was like, this isn't where a gaming convention needs to go. I think what I'm seeing already is a lot of local conventions are where people are breaking in. It's cheaper. It's more personal. It's more intimate. As a game designer, you can sit down at a table and suck in 10 people to sit and play your game. Whereas at Gen Con, it's hard to do demos at the booths even anymore. I've stopped
Right.
going to Gen Con. It's ridiculous to have to wear a mask.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, at Gen Con, and I talked to my grandson about it. He's like, we did it the one year. We wore the mask all year. And he was like, I was miserable. I don't want to go if I have to wear a mask. I'm like, I got to show a vaccine card and,
Yeah.
this is welcome to Germany, 1938 papers, please. It's crazy,
That's
but
a common perception too.
yeah. But when you get down to the smaller conventions, first of all, they want the smaller publishers in there. They invite them, and I think they're a little more friendly. And so I think there's going to be a more shift to the regional conventions and get away from Gen Con and even Origins at this point.
Sure. All right. One last chance for you to plug anything you want right before we sign off.
Hey, go buy Blue Dawn, go buy Land and Sea. Yeah, those are all the plugs I need.
Blue Dawn,
All right.
and those are Blue Dawn is available on Amazon. Right
Oh
now.
yeah.
Very cool. Thank you guys for showing up tonight. Thank you, Blaine.
Thank you. Good talking
right.
to you. Good to see you face to face.
Yeah, right. We'll talk again. Thanks,
Talk to you
guys.
soon.